and give you my loudest voice. And I'd like to welcome everyone here this morning, because I know you're all here because you're interested in health. And I also am here because I am interested in health. And it's exciting when I'm lining up to get on the plane in the corridor, about to step on the plane, and a flight attendant runs up and says, "Are you Australian?" I said, "Yes." "Are you Barbara?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I'm watching you, you've changed my life." How nice. It's really nice that I see that. And so what I'd like to begin, I'd like to lay a foundation, because I always like to lay a foundation. So this is the microphone. And you'll be glad I've got a microphone because I haven't got a really loud voice. And so I like the Proverb 14 verse 6 that says, "Knowledge is easy to him that understands." So I'd like to give you an understanding of how the body works. And to understand how the body works, we need to go to the central business district of the human body, which is the inside workings of the cell. And we are really just a bunch of cells. We have eye cells, we have skin cells, we have bone cells, we have muscle cells, we have brain cells. So understanding the inside workings of the cell gives us an understanding of how the body works. And when you understand how the body works, you begin to understand how it heals. And so understanding how the body works allows us to keep the body in good working order. And understanding how it works, if we are not well, it actually shows us how our body can heal. And our body was designed to heal itself. We know it was designed to heal itself because if you cut yourself, it'll heal, won't it? If you cut yourself, it'll heal. But if you keep pulling the cut apart and you get some dirt and rub the dirt into the wound, it's not going to heal very well, is it? I had a man attend our program, and he had a scar from his sternum to his pubic bone, and it was 1/2 inch wide. Do you know what that scar told me? He's been opened again and again and again. And he had been, because he had a condition called irritable bowel. And we're going to be spending a whole morning on the gut in a few days, which I'm so excited about because I love the gut. Because when you know how the gut works, then you begin to understand how the gut heals. And when I hear of people who've been suffering from Crohn's disease for 30 years, I think, we see people start to heal in a week. They're not better in a week. But how do you know they're healing in a week? Because the body tells them. How does the body tell them? They stop bleeding. They stop cramping. Their bowel movements go from 10 a day to 4 a day. So it's very important. This, it's called listen. Very important to listen, because the body will guide you. And it will guide you by its voices. But the main, probably the number one, or there are two main theories in medicine today as to why people are sick. And one is the gene theory. It's not me, it's in my genes. Well, my mother died a cripple in a wheelchair at 51, I was 25. And I have strong inherited genes towards arthritis, but you probably noticed I'm way past 51 and I'm not a cripple in a wheelchair and I'm not dead. I'm so glad that though genetics may load the gun, it is lifestyle that pulls the trigger. And we have no say over our genes, but we have total say over lifestyle. That's the good news. It's a field called epigenetics. Epigenetics is a study of how our lifestyle affects our genes. And in 1953, 70 years ago, the headlines in the newspaper said, "Secret of life had been discovered." Two scientists, Watson and Crookes, had been able to unravel the DNA. And when you unravel the DNA, which sits in the nucleus of every cell, there are 23 chromosomes from our mother and 23 chromosomes from our father. And don't we look at our brothers and our sisters and our children and our nieces and our nephews? Oh, she's got her mother's eyes, she's got her father's nose. And when I was in Ireland last year, I stayed with a 6'8" man. And he had a 6'4", 18-year-old son. I took a photo of them and I showed my son. He said, "What a wig." I looked like a tiny little child in the middle of this. Why is that 18-year-old man 6'4"? Because he's got a 6-foot father. And he's got a tall mother. Well, I think she's tall, 5'7". So it's genes from our mother and genes from our father. So why did the newspaper say Secret of Life had been discovered? Because they theorised. You see that? Theorised. There's theory and there's fact, isn't that true? And we can test the theory and we can find out if it's true or if it's not. They theorised that if they understood the DNA, they'd be able to play with the DNA. And if they could play with the DNA, then they'd make people better. Well, it's 70 years later, are we any better? Yeah. No, we're worse. The hospitals are getting bigger. It seems like a tiny little step to say, I'm only I thought I was 5'2", but I just found out I'm 5'1¼ Devastating news. Nothing can change the fact in my heart. Nothing can change the fact on the colour of my skin, the colour of my hair. And I have brown hair because my father died at 92 and half brown and half grey. My mother at 51 had brown hair. So in both my genes, there's brown hair. My husband's white, even though he's 4 years younger than me, because his mother was white at 50, his father was white at 50. So he got two genes on white hair. Nothing can change this about me, my height, colour of my eyes, colour of my skin, colour of my hair. So it seems like a tiny little step to say nothing can change the fact that my mother was a cripple in a wheelchair with rheumatoid arthritis, and so will I. But it's not necessarily so. But if I had it in my mind, I will be, guess what? I would be. And on Saturday morning, we're going to go straight to the brain. And I'm going to show you how the brain, how we think, affects our body. It's like the lady said to me, I can't sleep, I can't sleep, I can't sleep. I said, don't say that anymore. Every time you say you can't sleep, her body goes, oh, listen to that. We can't sleep, okay. Our cells are very obedient to our mind. I'm so glad that genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle is the trigger. So let's have a look at this DNA. The DNA has a lot of information in it. It's like a library. And it's got a huge amount of information in it. In fact, if you were to put all the information that's in the DNA in alphabetical language and put it into paperback books, it would go to the moon and back. I can hardly get my mind around that. You know, the Bible says in Psalm 139, verse 15, it says, well, in verse 14 it says, I will praise you, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, marvellous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. And that psalmist didn't know what I've just told you. But look at the next verse. It says, my substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret, curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. I didn't know what was happening inside of me. I held 6 babies, but I didn't know what was going on in there. But God knows. And then it says, thine eyes did see my substance, yet being imperfect. Isn't this interesting? My substance, what I'm made from. In my book were all my members written. Where's the book? It's right here. right here. Which in continuance were being fashioned, when as yet there were none of them. I hope I haven't lost you with the old English. But these verses talk about a writing about my members. What are my members? My arms, my legs, my hair, my eyes, my nose. It's all written in there. It amazed me when I read that. The DNA in the Bible. There it all is. And I'm sure when the psalmist wrote that, he didn't know what he was writing. He wrote under the inspiration of God. And now in 2023, we can read that and think, wow, look at that. It's all written in the DNA. The Bible says God has a book. He doesn't have to have a very big book. All he has to have in the book is our DNA. And we've got 100 trillion cells in our body. 75 trillion are as this. 25 trillion are our red blood cells. And we're going to be talking about our red blood cells as we go through the week. But today we want to talk about the 75 trillion other cells that in the nucleus have the DNA. The DNA is made up of the food that we eat. So the outside strands is made up of poly. What does poly mean? Many. Saccharides. What does saccharides mean? Many sugars. In fact, the breakfast that we all partook of this morning had many sugars in it. All our food is made up of many sugars. The crossword bands is made up of amino acids. And amino acids is a breakdown from the protein that we eat. My almonds I had this morning were a good source of the amino acids. And the glue that glues these together is minerals. And the food with the highest minerals is vegetables. And the vegetable with the highest mineral is greens, dark green leafy vegetables. We should be having a dark green leafy salad every day. Well, when I was down south, we had collard greens. Even when you cook them, you don't lose your minerals. Isn't that good news? You might lose some of your tender vitamins, but you don't lose your minerals. So we should have something green every single day. And as we'll look at later in the week, look at the biggest boned creatures in the world. What do they eat? Green grass. That's right, that's right. That's how my children got their minerals. So when I took them to the dentist, I thought it was probably time I took the kids to the dentist. I think the youngest was 4, the eldest was 15. The dentist said, your children's teeth astonish me. There's no cavities, they're strong. In one child, there was a little bit of a cavity starting, but she said the teeth are so strong, it arrested it. Woo! And they don't drink cow's milk. They get their minerals, because that's what our bones, our teeth are made from, minerals. And as you'll see, as we go through this, one of the causes of damage to the DNA, we're going to look at the causes. One of the causes of damage to the DNA, 92% actually. 92% of the reasons why the DNA gets damaged is mineral deficiency. Now that makes minerals pretty important. Mineral deficiency. Newton's third law of motion states that to every action there's an equal and an opposite reaction. I'd like to put my resident Y up here because there is always a reason. Rudyard Kipling, he wrote a whole poem on this, but I'll just give you the first stanza. He said, I have 6 trusty serving men. They taught me all I know. Their names are what, why, when, where, how, and who. You take them with you everywhere you go. And if your health professional gets annoyed at your questions, politely excuse yourself, leave the room and don't pay the bill. Would you pay the bill if the tiler did a bad job? I knew it said shoddy, but I don't get out that word shoddy. A new word, an Australian word. I'll introduce you to a few Australian words. Bad job. Bad job. Would you pay the bill? No, you'd say, I'd like that fixed up first. Yeah. So if your health professional does not answer your questions, isn't that what you're employing them to do? Remember that, you're employing them. Even the specialist with many, many letters behind his name. We are the ones that can change the system. So mineral deficiency. You see, what happens is we're constantly being remade. We're remade according to the pattern, remade according to the formula. And even though this DNA can be pulled out 2 meters long, it's all curled up inside the nucleus of every cell. Incredible information. And we're constantly being remade. Eye cells are remade every 1 to 2 days. That's why if you get anything in your eye, you have to get it out quickly, don't you? In fact, you want to because you cannot rest. It's so uncomfortable having something in your eye. And the body does that, and we certainly listen when it does that, because otherwise, if it stays there, then it can grow cells over whatever gets into the eye. So up in the rainforest, we had some workers there. And we were 2 hours from town. And one of the workers got a piece of metal in his eye. What are you going to do? 2 hours from town, and there's some bright spark, thought of a magnet. They put the magnet near the eye, and the metal shot out. I tell everyone that. Isn't that nice to have that in your repertoire? A magnet. How easy is that? And so, because we're constantly being remade, especially the eye cells, that we need to deal with it if something gets in. And that's why eye surgery, they recover very quickly, because they're constantly being remade. And when we look at natural remedies later in the week, we'll look at a few things you can do for the eyes. Our cells that line our gastrointestinal tract, they're remade every 3 to 5 days. And that's why we're seeing results in a week when someone has serious colon problems. That's what it is. And we'll look at exactly why that would be so late in the week when we look at the gut. We've got a new skin every month. We've got new bones every 3 months, new liver every 6 weeks. We're constantly being remade according to the formula, according to the pattern. So if this is true, why aren't people healed? It is said that we have a new body every 2 years. I used to say, look after your body, because you can't get a new one. If you wreck your car, you can buy a new car. But actually, you can. You can get a new body. Once it's given the right conditions, it responds, it revives, and it heals.
In progress.
My sons are builders and tilers and landscapers, carpenters, and they have a wonderful job of renovating old houses, renovating gardens. I said, oh, I'm in the best job. We see bodies renovate, but I actually don't renovate the body. I just show you how. I just show you how. You see, I am the master of my destiny. Is that right?
Amen.
I am the one that chooses what I do and what I don't do to my body. Because God's government is a government of freedom. And freedom is based on free choice. Now you might say, well, that's pretty obvious. Well, unfortunately, I don't think it is. I don't think it is, because anyone that takes away your ability to choose what you do with your body, that's not God's voice. Because God's voice says, this is the way, walk in it. No thanks, I don't want to walk in that way. Okay, it's my choice. It's my choice. It's a beautiful gift and it's a wonderful gift. Never let anyone take it away from you. And Abraham Lincoln, he said, guard your constitution well. Do you know what your constitution states? Free choice to every single person that lives in the United States of America, is that right? Free choice. So I am the one that chooses what I do and what I don't do to my body. But what God designed us to do, which makes sense, is make decisions on information. And I know that's why you're here, to get information. And I will try very hard not to disappoint you. So why is there damage in the DNA? Because if there's damage in the DNA, the new cell cannot be made. You see, this is the formula, this is the pattern, and I know with my sons, before they landscape, they have a plan. Before they tie up, they have a plan. Before they build, they have a plan. Same with the body, there's a plan. And it was put there by God. And it's a perfect plan. Did you hear that? It's a perfect plan. So if it's not perfect, we have to understand why. Why are not I made right? Why aren't I healing? So the detective hat has to be put on and we need to investigate. But first of all, let us look at what causes damage to the DNA, which is inhibiting our body healing. 92% of DNA damage is caused by a mineral deficiency. How could that be? Aren't we eating more greens than we ever ate? 30 years ago, we didn't know what kale was. We didn't know what rocket was. These are greens that we're being introduced. We're eating more greens today than we ever ate. So what we have to do is you have to look at the green. And when we look at the green, we begin to understand it's how it's grown. So Dr. Robert Thompson, in his fascinating book, The Calcium Life. Now this doctor, I like to know where people come from. This doctor, he was getting frustrated in medicine. He was getting frustrated because people weren't healing. What's the definition of insanity? Do what you've always done and expect different results. People were not healing, and he became frustrated as a doctor. And I know as a psychiatric nurse, I felt the frustration. The same people kept coming back again and again. And oh dear, the medication's not doing what it used to do. So what do you do now? More medication, stronger medication. That don't make any sense. Don't make any sense at all. Because I'd like to suggest that much in medicine today has become unscientific. Because what's the basic law of science? Newton's third law of motion: to every action there's an equal and an opposite reaction. In other words, there is always a cause. To the point where Proverbs 26 verse 2 says, the curse causeless shall not come. Old English again, let me explain. In other words, the curse, the problem, the disease does not happen without a cause. A friend of mine, she WhatsApped me this morning from Dubai. She lives there. Barbara, they've just found E. coli in my urine. They want to put me on antibiotics. What do I do? You know, first thing I ask is, what are your symptoms? Why did you have a blood test? You see what I'm doing? Where did this come from? She said, and the doctor says my urine's acidic and I need to take this drug. I said, we take a sample of our urine early in the morning, it'll always be acidic. Because as you'll see, as we throw off waste, it's all acid. Once we drink our water, let's say we have 3 glasses of water, take a sample of your urine now. Oh, there's not acid anymore. Can you see what I mean? Our tests go up and like this. That's why I don't take it as gospel. And if someone shows my husband their blood test, he looks at it and he says, oh, I don't believe that. And they look at it. I said, you know, they could be wrong. I asked you, have they made a mistake? You know that I believe most doctors are ethical. Absolutely. But I know who is not ethical, and that's the pharmaceutical company. Sorry, this will probably be taken off YouTube now. And that's what we have to remember. And unfortunately, it's the system I don't agree with. Some of my best friends are doctors. And they're good doctors. And there are good plumbers and bad plumbers, is that right? And there are good painters and bad painters. But I am the master of my destiny. I am the one that chooses what I do. Mm-hmm. So see how you have to investigate that. I said, you're acidic if your pH changes all through the day, depending on what you ate, depending on if you're highly stressed, or it's just a wonderful day and you're laughing all day. You know, that'll change it. Drinking 3 cups of coffee and you haven't had any water, whoa, that urine will be acidic. You see what I mean? So mineral deficiency. Dr. Robert Thompson. So he's the disillusioned doctor. But you know, instead of getting out of medicine, and I'll tell you what, it takes a long time to become a doctor. It takes 7 years. And I'll tell you what, those last few years, that I don't know how the poor doctors survive. They're on call 24/7. So it's a bit hard to step straight out of it. So what he decided to do, he decided to study nutrition, and his eyes were open. When the doctor takes the Hippocratic oath, first do no harm. You know, that's the first phrase. And you know what Hippocrates said? Let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. So how come they take the Hippocratic oath but they don't study nutrition? Oh, sorry, 4 hours in 7 years. It's not much. So he studied nutrition, his eyes were open. He's now called a nutritional doctor. He said, we learn all this in medicine, but it's almost quick, it's crammed, and how do you remember all that? And so he wrote the book, the great, what did he call it? The calcium lie. You know what the lie is? Our bones aren't made of calcium. Sounds shocking. What are they made of? 64 trace minerals and 12 minerals. So what does our bones need? 64 trace minerals and 12 minerals. And that's how come the cows have strong bones. In fact, up in the bush where I live, a cow will die. I tell you, 2 years later, its bones are still on the ground. They're big. Takes them a while to break down. And where do they get their minerals from for those strong bones? Grass. I've got some good news. We don't have to eat grass. We eat rocket and basil, if you call it basil. And collard greens. Oh, there's so many greens. Dark and green leafy vegetables. But the problem is the way they're grown today. Dr. Robert Thompson shows that 50 years ago, there was twice as many minerals in the soil as today. Now, if the soil's deficient, the plant's deficient, and the person that eats that plant will be deficient. That's why organically grown fruits and vegetables have such a far higher content, because they feed the soil. It's not surprising that someone who lives on fast food, junk food, there's no minerals there. There are people who are eating fruits and vegetables every day and they're showing mineral deficiency. Another reason for this mineral deficiency is stimulants. And these stimulants are leaching minerals out. So how is that? Well, to understand how that's happening, the most alkaline mineral is calcium. And so and all stimulants have an acid effect. So when a person's taking stimulants, creating an acid effect, then the alkaline mineral has to be pulled out of its storage house, which is the bones and the teeth. And there are 2 minerals specifically that are pulled out to basically calm the acidic effect of the stimulants, and it's calcium and magnesium. And one of the stimulants is refined sugar. In fact, one writer said sugar leaves the body better dressed than when it went in. What's it dressed with? Our minerals. No wonder the children are getting tooth decay when they give us refined sugar. 2 reasons they're getting tooth decay is that it's leaching the minerals from the inside, causing the teeth to break down. And the sugar on the outside is feeding any bacteria in the teeth that happily will eat away at the dead teeth. In fact, my daughter, one of her friends, her little boy was introduced to sugars and candies and sweet biscuits early. No wonder he wouldn't eat his vegetables. You give a child a sugar biscuit, or you call it a cookie. Yeah? So when we come to Australia and see gravy and biscuits, we think these Americans are Australian. But I know your biscuit is like a cake or a scone, is that right? Yes. Like a bread roll, something like that. So cookie. If you give a child a sweet cookie and then ask them to eat their vegetables, what are they going to say? Yeah. Forget it. My friend said, Barbara, why do your children eat all their salad? Why do they eat all their vegetables? Why don't mine? I said, well, it might be something to do with the chocolate that you gave them an hour ago. You know, it's got a bit of common sense here. You know, it's not very common today. Did you know that? Mm. Common sense. Yeah, yeah. So, refined sugar. Now, nothing wrong with the sugar cane. Have you seen that black stuff that they take out of it? It's called molasses. There's all the minerals. And then you're left with a white crystallized acid. And that's what it is, it's a pure acid. So no wonder when I took my children to the dentist, she was astonished because so many children's teeth she sees are in a bad way. They're rotting before their first teeth even fall out. And there's a reason. It's lack of minerals. Lack of minerals. So the first foods that my baby had, and by the way, I didn't feed my babies food. I waited till they had teeth, till they could sit, until they had teeth. Does that make sense? No, we've lost that. And the first food I gave them was usually a stick of celery. Nice minerals in that. And they nibble away at it and drink some of the juice. And you know, you have a look at babies, they'll eat anything. Have you noticed? They'll eat a caterpillar if it's crawling up again. The lady was so embarrassed to tell me that her 12-month-old ate a little bit of dog dropping. She said, I'm so sorry to tell you this. She was just horrified. I said, don't worry, it just goes in the gut and comes out the other end. Got that? It's not in our body yet. So if they'll eat that, what happens that they become fussy? Have you ever asked yourself that? What happens that they become fussy? It's because they're introduced to devitalised food. That's right. Nothing wrong with chewing on a bit of sugar cane. It'll keep the kid. You give the kids 2 inches of sugar cane, it'll keep them happy for hours. That's how long it takes. And it takes 1 litre of sugar cane to deliver 1 teaspoon of refined sugar. And no wonder the horse breeders give their horses molasses that give such shiny coats. There's all the minerals. There's all the minerals. So refined sugar not only is leaching the minerals out, but it's also damaging the DNA. How so? Well, when refined sugar goes in, the blood sugar level goes up very high, very fast. And then the brain says, whoa, we've got overload, pancreas, release a corresponding amount of insulin. So much insulin was released that it drops too low. And what does the person do when their blood sugar goes low? Grabs another candy, grabs another coffee with 2 teaspoons of sugar. Will that get it up? Oh, yes. And then it goes too high again. See this whiplash, up, down, it just exhausts pancreas. What do exhaust pancreases called? Diabetes. 500 new diabetics diagnosed every day in Australia. I don't know the American figures but I think they're close. If you want to talk about a pandemic, that is the pandemic. There are true pandemics or false pandemics, as we recently discovered. I have to say it in code. Then YouTube won't take it down. So you see what's happening here. Now we've got a damaged DNA to the pancreatic gene. And this explains the 5-year-olds, the 2-year-olds we've got here. They haven't been on the planet long enough. No, they've inherited a defective DNA from the parents because of the parents' sugar habits. And they don't tell them how to do that on the sugar packet. But in Australia, there was an ad for a while, and it had a teaspoon of sugar being poured out with all this beautiful lush green in the background, and it said, "Sugar, a natural part of life." You know, a comparable one is to have poppy plants in the background and pour out the pure crystallized acid called cocaine and say, "Cocaine, a natural part." You discover you can't believe everything you hear on the box. Really? In fact, hardly anything. Anything you hear on there, believe the opposite, and you're just about getting to the truth. Maybe you've discovered that, discovered it in the last few years. So not only does refined sugar leach the minerals, it damages the DNA. Caffeine. We call this Australia's darling. I think it's America's darling too. Am I right? I know, because even the pilots, before they get on the plane, what have they got in their hand? They've got that coffee. No wonder they have to have two. Because what that caffeine does, it certainly gives a lift, and you know why? Because it causes a crisis response. In fact, the response in the body, in the nervous system to caffeine is the same as the response to a crisis. And no wonder you get a lift. You're about to do the run of your life, the climb of your life, the fight of your life, whatever it is in the crisis. No wonder there's a crisis response. But what happens is the body says they're not running, they're not jumping, they're just sitting in a cafe shop, coffee shop. And so after the initial rise, there's a corresponding run. And when the person starts to get a bit tired at work, what do they reach for? They stuff in coffee. So again, we get this whiplash. What caffeine does is it disrupts the neurotransmitters in the brain. The same disruption with the brain. Where does the energy come for that crisis? It doesn't come from the food we just ate. It comes from our adrenal glands. You've heard of adrenal exhaustion? Very common in a long-term coffee user. Because that hit is coming from the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are the backup for a crisis. Yet they've been used every day, 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, just to give a lift in the office. Whereas if you went outside, ran around the oval twice, breathed deeply, had a big glass of water, you'd get a far better lift. They can't run in high heels. Take them off. You get grounding. And have a lift there. See, they're misconceptions. And what you'll find is there's a lot of deception. A lot of deception in what we're told today. A lot of deception. And what we're all about here is truth. But I've got some good news. Truth is stronger than error. And right will prevail over wrong. Sometimes right in the middle of it, it doesn't seem like. Now, caffeine not only leaches minerals, but caffeine also damages the DNA. So you can have a couple, both having more than 2 coffees a day. Maybe the lady has half a bar of chocolate a day. Maybe a guy has call it Dr. Pepper. We don't have that Coke. They can give birth to a baby with a tendency to attention deficit syndrome, hyperactivity, autism, because of the parents' caffeine habits. In fact, one writer said parents are the genetic engineers of their children. Now, if you're feeling bad right now because you've done everything wrong, the good news is when you start doing everything right, the body recovers, recharges, and revives. Isn't that good news? Because genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. And you're never allowed to beat yourself up over this because you did not know. And if you did not know, you cannot be held accountable. One lady said, but the television said it was healthy. I'll leave it up to you. You can't believe everything you hear. It's up to us to investigate and find out the truth. There's a book called Caffeine Blues. It's by Jenkinson, I think his name is. He said, wake up to the truth on America's #1 drug. Why is it called caffeine blues? Because that's what it causes, the blues. There's another book by William Duff at this time called Sugar Blues. These both give highs and come in corresponding lows. That's the deception. It's called buy now, pay later. Other stimulants that are leaching minerals out of the body is alcohol. Alcohol is a toxic poison. In fact, it was 15 years ago, the Australian Health Department, and it surprised me that they said this, because most of the people that make the rules drink alcohol. The Australian Health Department stated that there is no safe dose of alcohol. It's a neurotoxin. It's a poison to the body. And you've got your history in America. You know your history for prohibition, 1920 to 1933, alcohol was banned. Did you know that? Outlawed. Did you know that mental institution occupancy dropped to 8%? Did you know that the jails were almost empty? Did you know that domestic violence was almost non-existent? Why did they legalise it? Well, they told the American people that if they legalised alcohol, the American people wouldn't have to pay taxes. Do you pay taxes? Deceptions again. And I watched a documentary on it, and the documentary didn't tell you any of this. The documentary presented it as if what a wonderful day. Big parties when it was legalised again. They don't tell you the background, do they? They don't tell you all of this. You know, life should be good. I want to feel good, and I want to feel good every day of my life, all day, every day. They might feel good at the party, drunk, but how do they feel the next day? Really? Someone just beat them up. You know what a hangover is? A hangover is your body saying, please don't do that to me. How many brain cells were killed that night because it's a neurotoxin? And those brain cells, once they're dead, they're dead. They don't regrow. Tobacco. We're getting children born today with less alveoli in their lungs to smoking parents. We're getting children born today with honeycomb shape. The honeycomb shape around the alveoli, like big holes in it. Children born with smoking parents. One girl said, when I felt pregnant, I stopped smoking. I said, good choice. But unfortunately, it's been really damaged before. But you did not know. In Acts 17 verse 30, the Bible says, God winks at our ignorance. So should we. You know what winking at ignorance means? You can't be held accountable if you did not know. So please don't beat yourself up if you've done everything wrong. You did not know. But now you know. But I'm the master of my destiny. I am the one that chooses. I'm the one that chooses what I do, what goes into my body. Unfortunately, many people are taking things into their body under deception, not realising the danger. So these substances not only damage, these substances are also leaching minerals. So when you've got food that's mineral deficient, and you've got people on stimulants that's just leaching more minerals, no wonder we've got damage in the DNA. No wonder people are not here. What also causes damage in the DNA is genetically modified foods. Unfortunately, Monsanto is so wealthy and so powerful, it wins every court case where Americans are trying to get this listed on the labels. So how can you be assured that you're not eating genetically modified food when you eat organic? Because the organic farmer will not use genetically modified seed, or he loses his organic status. And in Australia, we don't have Whole Foods, we don't have Sprout, we don't have Trader Joe's, but you guys do. You have lots of options of eating food that is organic. But it's more expensive, yes it is. It is more expensive, but did you know that one organic tomato will give you 9 times the iron of a conventionally grown tomato? So when you eat organic, you're eating food that's power packed. So it's actually cheaper, is that right? It's actually got more nutrients. And the more Americans that buy organic, the more organic will be found. Did you know that Vladimir Putin, Russia's president, boy, you can believe it, do you? Can you believe it? I wonder. But about 15 years ago, he made a law that any Russian who grows with genetically modified seed is to be considered a terrorist. Yes. And he's giving land away to Russians who will grow organic, non-GMO. Now that didn't hit the newspaper, did it? Genetically modified foods interfere with our DNA because that's the very way they're made, by splicing 2 different species of DNA together in the hope to make a tomato that grows in the snow, but it actually doesn't. That it now has 5 centres and it now has molecules that our body does not recognise. Genetically modified foods is a contributing factor to cancer because it causes this change in the molecules. What also causes damage to the DNA is chemicals. I'm sure those of my era are familiar with the thalidomide tragedy. Not a lot of young people are familiar with the thalidomide tragedy. There was an anti-nausea drug that was given to pregnant women, and then they started giving birth to babies without arms. And we had an 8-year-old midwife, 10-year program from Germany. She said, I delivered the first thalidomide baby. So that was given probably in the 50s because my husband was born in 1957 and he said his mother was offered the thalidomide drug because she was feeling nauseous in pregnancy. So those ladies who are nauseous and pregnant, I'm sure you won't mind being nauseous anymore. And if you suck on ginger or have ginger tea, that can certainly alleviate the nausea. Yeah. Be careful of your home. Be careful of what's in your laundry cupboard, what's in your kitchen cupboard. What's in my laundry cupboard is white vinegar and sodium bicarbonate and eucalyptus oil. That's what's in my laundry cupboard. But be careful of the clothes that you're wearing. Did you know that a lot of fabrics today were created in a chemical laboratory? So, and what's our skin? Millions of little mouths. So when you put it against your skin, those chemicals are going into your body. Men, they wear cotton underpants, cotton undershirts, cotton shirts, cotton jeans. But the ladies are the most affected because the ladies love the pretty things. And the lady loves those polyesters that just can take straight out of the suitcase and they don't even need to iron it. Can you see the attraction? But it's a great deception because they're chemicals, those fabrics. Polyester, nylon and acrylic. They're the 3 chemical fabrics. I go to great lengths to make sure what's touching my skin is a natural fibre. So I very much like this skirt because it came straight out of the suitcase and it's not very brittle, but it's made out of viscose. And viscose is made out of wood pulp. It's actually not actually wood pulp, bamboo pulp. So viscose is bamboo. And rayon is another fabric made out of wood pulp. And modal, M-O-D-A-L. Modal is fabric that was created from the birch tree, the cellulose from the birch tree. It is true that all these wood fabrics are softened with chemicals. So please, when you buy them, wash them and hang them on the clothesline. I think anyone in America who makes clothesline, I should be getting cut. It's time to go back to the clothesline. I think we all know, because of what happened in 2020, that possibly ahead there'll be times when the electricity, we get shortages, yeah? And we know by looking at the past and the future that times could be interesting ahead. So it's time to get the clothesline out. You know the sun purifies your clothes. Did you know that your sun will purify your fabric? Wash it, but be careful what you wash it in. Here's another deception. What you wash your clothes in. My daughter's got a front-loader washing machine. And recently it broke down, so the mechanic came and fixed it up. And he said, this washing machine is so effective you could wash your clothes in water. Have you ever thought of that? Just water. It rinses it, squeezes it, and rinses it, and squeezes it. So do you know what that means when you pay more money for your biodegradable washing detergent? Just use a quarter of what they tell you to use. Instead of 2 teaspoons, half a teaspoon. Then it's not so expensive, is that right? So can you see where I'm taking you? All of these hidden ways that we can be exposed to chemicals. So so ladies, look at your underwear. The bras. How many bras can you buy that are made out of natural fibre? Almost a lot. But you've got fruit of the loom. Fruit of the loom. 95% cotton. What about the other 5%? Don't worry about it, just a little bit. Makes it a bit elastic. Jockey, J-O-C-K-E-Y. 80% of their underwear is made out of chemical plastic, but you will find a small percentage made out of viscose, made out of modal. And I'll tell you an amusing story. I was in Idaho last year, actually 2021. Went into a Trader Joe's and there was a whole stand of bamboo underwear, leggings, you call them undershirts, we call them singlets, bras, all of that. Oh, I got so excited, I bought a whole or something for my daughters, spent $160. Got back to my room and I'm taking the labelling off, look at the fine writing, made in Australia. Oh, it's like taking tea to China. So that's how I know you can get booty, B-O-O-D-Y. So there are 3 brands where, ladies, you will be able to buy those underwears. They're stretchy, they're just like a polyester thing, but when you wear them, they're like a nylon. You don't sweat. It breathes because it's made out of wood. So we have to be very mindful too of our teenagers, of our children. And as you'll find out when we look at hormones later in the week, this is affecting the hormones. Yes, what about that? What about diapers? We call them nappies. That's a very good question. I'm sure in Trader Joe's you can get diapers made out of starch, because I know in Australia you can. And they're made out of cornstarch. And a lot of mothers are going back to cloth. When I had babies, my youngest baby's 36 now, so when I had babies, I just did all cloth nappies. And they don't have to be these great big things anymore that are folded like kites like we used to have. You can get little over pants that have just got little pads that sit in and you can wash. So absolutely, it's a good question. We've got to look seriously at what our children, what our babies are exposed to. And you go into a place like Target, you have a look at the labels. How many clothes there are made out of natural fibre? It's a deception and it's slipped in on people. Unfortunately, you can't trust. You've got to investigate. In fact, one lady said, I'd like to make a t-shirt with your husband saying on it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. That's really what you have to have in your mind. That's why if you're told, you've got to do this and you've got to do it straight away, you know what you say? Thank you so much for your advice. I'm going to seriously consider this. Smile like an idiot and
Can I again what the three companies are to the company?
So jockey, I had the listening jockey and you're on your payroll. But you know what, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in us finding out how we can get better health. And I won't write fruit of the loom because I think you don't know. Yeah. I haven't mentioned the food, but that's a big one in the food that we eat. I'd rather get a caterpillar in my lettuce than no caterpillar and that have chemicals that I cannot see. Mm-hmm. And the biggest chemical company in the world today, made billions these last few years. It's the pharmaceutical company. Drugs are chemicals. And drugs never cure disease. They just change the form and location of disease. There are some drugs that can be stopped immediately, but there are some drugs that have to be eased off. And as we go through these classes, I will show you the ones that have to be eased off and the ones that can be stopped immediately. They never cure disease. It's like the man that says, I've been on medication for my reflux for 25 years. Is it working? No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not at all. And he came up. He was just so happy. What did he do? He took cayenne pepper every meal. What did cayenne pepper do? Boosted his hydrochloric acid, which those anti-reflux medications have been slaughtering through the years, because our stomach should be acid. That's how we break our protein down. Problem is usually the gate at the top. The gate at the top is a muscle. To relax that muscle, magnesium. Magnesium closes that muscle, keeps that food in. And start eating most of the food, breakfast or lunch. And eat lightly or none at night. It's as simple as that. Electromagnetic fields. These are called the silent killers. Called the silent killers because you cannot see them. So be very careful on your exposure to electromagnetic fields. I was reading the report of a breast surgeon. He said it's alarming the amount of young women that are coming in with breast cancer in the breast where they put the phone in the sports bra. You can even buy a sports bra today that's got a pocket. So be careful how close it is to your body. Hip pocket. I wonder how many hip replacements are going to happen in the next 10 years. In young people, because of the deterioration of the pelvis and also the head of the femur because of where the phone was put. So please put it in your bag. And men, it's okay to have a man bag. Keep it outside of your body. Be careful where you sleep. 80% of Americans sleep with their phones and the pillow is no protection unless it's made out of lead. Get the technology out of your room. If you want an alarm clock on your phone, put it in the hall. You'll wake up. I woke up with a start at 6 o'clock this morning to this beautiful orchestral music, and it was the alarm from the last person who was in my room. It was Mozart in my room, but it wasn't heavy rock. I would have flown out of breath with a shot. So there are certainly other ways that you can have your alarm, and I guess that's the most excuse that people have for having their phone near them is is online. So get that technology away from yourself. And you want to know the Russian standards on children and exposure to technology. Under the age of 2, 0 exposure. Under the age of 5, 5 minutes. Under the age of 10, 15 minutes. Getting up to 15 an hour, getting up to 18, 3 hours exposure. And how many parents give the phone to keep the child quiet? What happens when you try and take the phone away? There is no quiet. You know, the best thing for children is outside playing in the dirt. That's the very best thing, just the very simple. Very simple things. I don't hear children crying in airports much now, because what are they doing? And their skulls are thinner than our skulls, so their brains are more susceptible to damage from the electromagnetic field. So be careful of that. All of these are causing damage to the DNA. There's one more before we have a break, and that's mold. And many people are unaware of the dangers of mold. So after our break, I'm going to make you aware of the dangers of mold. After the break, we're going to have a look at the role of microorganisms in a part-related disease. Are they the cause of disease or are they the result? As you can see by what we've looked at this morning, that genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. So sorry, you can't blame genes any longer. And as you'll see in my next presentation, you can't blame the germ either. I'm going to show you the role that they play, and we're going to have a look at the role of mold. But if you have a look in nature, you have it whitens, you have to look at it splices into the DNA of the tree, and it reproduces itself through the tree. And there is one snail, and they can tell if it's got fungus in it because its antennas are 3 times longer with colour in it. So there are illustrations in nature of mold or fungus splicing into the DNA of other creatures and certainly trees. So we'll have a look at the role of microorganisms in disease in a break. So it's 10 past.